Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is Wednesday morning, March 3rd, 5:30 in the morning here in Calgary, Alberta, and I'm happy to be here this morning and glad you can join me. We're on for 15 minutes here. This is one child abuse survivor to another, and I'm so glad you can be here. We're looking at an article I found on the web, and I was just searching for information on understanding, it was regarding child abuse and maltreatment and juvenile delinquency. I was interested in looking at the ties between that, and I found some great articles here, and we've been going over those. Last week we covered the first part of it, and then this week we're covering part 2, Understanding Child Maltreatment and Juvenile Delinquency, Foundations for Effective Responses. And we're just seeing that there are programs in place, and in these certain cities located in the United States, they've done the studies, they've checked it out and gone back and saw that 20 years later, after these programs were implemented into these schools, that it does make a difference, and rates, juvenile delinquency rates, violent crime rates dropped when the programs were in place, as compared to the other control groups where the programs were not in place. So it's really quite interesting to see, and I just thought we'd cover some of that because I know that there's a real link to the reason why kids get into trouble. Not every kid who's in trouble was abused, but I think that it does increase the risk, and they've kind of sort of shown us that it does, and that a lot of kids just don't have they just don't have a good system at home to keep them out of trouble. Some kids are actually taught how to do crimes, and some parents just don't care about their children and what they're doing, and they go out and they get in trouble. And so I just thought it was really interesting to take a look at it. And so I'm glad you can be here. That's what we're going to cover this morning again, and we're going to just keep working through this article. There's quite a few pages left, and we'll see if we can cover the whole thing. Some of it's just a bit more clinical, but we'll take a look anyway. Excuse me, and my voice is terrible this morning. So this is not a professional show, and I'm not a professional, counselor or therapist. I don't hold any certificates or anything like that. I have to say this on every show because people are listening from the players and not actually from the website, blogtalkradio.com. And I just ask that you listen at your own discretion. We have to be responsible for what we listen to, and if, almost every single subject I cover that deals with abuse, whether it's child abuse or domestic violence or, human rights abuses of all kinds, and because child abuse is a human right abuse, and that's what I'm interested in, is child rights and human rights. And so I do cover all kinds of topics, and they are sensitive, and I just really ask that people would know where they're at and in their healing process. If you're a survivor, an adult survivor who's walking through your healing, you have to know really where you are in your healing, so you want to be sure you're safe to listen to the show. And if not, then please turn it off, because it's just better that you be safe, and I would not be offended at all if you turned off the show. So, make sure that you're in a safe place when you're listening, and anyone who's under the age of 18, please have someone listen with you, because there's so many crazy people out there online trying to get a hold of kids, and, I'm fighting against that, and, I'm fighting for child rights and human rights, and I think it's unfortunate that all children don't have someone in their life who actually care and care enough to want to be part of what they're listening to. And I hope and just pray that you have someone out there who can really just who wants to be interested in your life and cares about what you're doing, and wants to help and be part of it. And I hope that you have even if you have a mentor, a teacher, or a counselor, someone in your life, who has a good head on their shoulders, and you trust, and they've proven themselves trustworthy, and who will listen to this with you and make sure it's something you should be listening to. That's just so important to me. So we have about 10 minutes, and we'll just continue right on. We're looking at an article from www.cwla.org, and it's called Understanding Child Maltreatment and Juvenile Delinquency, Foundations for Effective Responses, written by Janet Wig. That's W-I-I-G, J-D, and M-S-W. I'm just not sure what those initials, what that stands for. But it's a great article, and there's just lots of good information on it, and so we'll continue on. We're going to start with intervention in response to early onset of delinquency, and I'm just going to read right from the page, and you can go right to that website if you want and pull these up and check them out for yourselves. There was 2 articles, part 1 and part 2, and we're on part 2. And so, I'll just start reading. Concern is increasing about the incidence of delinquent behavior by children between the ages of 7 and 12 and the appropriateness of responses to these children and their families. Although the number of arrests of these very young offenders increased by only 6% between 1988 and 1997, there was a significant change in the nature of crimes charged during this period. As Snyder reported, in Child Delinquents between 1988 and 1997, arrests of very young juveniles for property crimes dropped by 17%, while arrests for violent crimes increased by 45%. At the same time, juvenile court cases involving these children increased by 33%, far more than the increase in arrests, indicating that law enforcement agencies are referring more of these very young offenders to juvenile courts. One of the challenges, however, is responding to these offenders is inherent in the operation of the legal system itself, in that it does not really contemplate the presence of such young children. Nonetheless, attention needs to be focused on these very young offenders. These would be children between the ages of 7 and 12, right? That's really quite young. Although they constituted only 9% of all juvenile offenders in 1997, they present a disproportionate threat to public safety and will require a significant amount of the juvenile justice system's resources because child delinquents are substantially more likely to be recidivists, serious offenders, chronic offenders, and violent offenders. And the characteristics of some very young offenders under the age of 10, documented in a study in Hennepin County, Minnesota in 1995, illustrate the presence of multiple risk factors for future delinquency. And this study found that of 135 children under the age of 10 referred by law enforcement to the prosecutor during a 19-month period, the majority came from families that had received public assistance, the 91%, and mothers who were in their teens at the birth of the first child, 70%, and had histories of charged crimes or delinquent acts on the part of parents or siblings, 70%. The study also found that many of these families had received previous social services from the county for problems with family functioning, for instance, chemical health, mental health. 85% of this group that had received previous services, 81% had been the subject of a child protection assessment where school information was available. The study found that the subject child was likely to have had attendance, 56% behavior, so that's attendance behavior, 63%, or learning problems, 51% in school. The risk factor domains for delinquency are much the same for very young offenders as they are for the older juveniles. Examples: child, family, peer group, community, and neighborhood. The difference may be that the individual factors such as birth complications, exposure to lead, difficult temperament, hyperactivity, impulsivity, and sensation seeking, and family factors such as parental antisocial or delinquent behavior, parental substance abuse, parents' poor child-rearing practices, mothers smoking during pregnancy, and teenage motherhood will be more important the younger the child. There are some risk factors in the family that apply especially but not exclusively to child delinquents, and that's family disruption, especially a success of different caretakers, parental antisocial or delinquent behavior, parental substance abuse, maternal depression, child abuse and neglect, family members' carelessness in allowing children access to weapons, especially guns. That they said here, Leber and Farrington point out that there are a few organized intervention programs for very young offenders, but their effectiveness remains to be evaluated. They stress the importance of primary prevention programs that promote pro-social behavior and prevent disruptive behavior before it involves the juvenile justice system. They recommend that interventions for very young offenders and disruptive youth should be integrated across services. Focus on children before age 13 years. Apply multi-model interventions addressing more than one domain of risk factors, example, the individual child and the family and the school, right? Address multiple problems of the child where necessary. Hennepin County and subsequently Ramsey County, Minnesota, elected to target the youngest of these offenders under the age of 10 to reduce their movement into the juvenile and criminal justice systems. Both counties developed risk assessment instruments based on factors known to place children at higher risk of delinquency in order to determine what the level of intervention should be for these children. And the highest risk children are placed in a long-term intervention program designed to support the child until the age of 18. And the children selected for long-term intervention have multiple risk factors significantly present in critical areas. For example, in Ramsey County, of the 78 children selected for long-term intervention, 44% had a mental health diagnosis and 37% had prior police contact. They lived in families that had delinquent siblings, 52%, criminal parents, 91%, parental drug use, 76%, domestic violence, 63%, or involvement with CPS, 81%. And the programs in Hennepin and Ramsey counties for high-risk offenders under the age of 10 are called, respectively, Targeted Early Intervention, and that's TEI, and All Children Excel, ACE. Hennepin County developed the TEI program in 1997. 2 years later, ACE replicated the TEI model with a number of enhancements. Both programs have strong ongoing evaluation components, and this and the fact that the children are to stay in the program until age 18 holds promise for determining the efficiency of these programs. TEI is characterized by its emphasis on the assessment and needs of the individual child, family functioning, integration of service delivery systems, and community supports. The program activities carried out by two entities, the Integrated Service Delivery Team and primary organizations, community-based agencies. The Integrated Service Delivery Team consists of a child protection worker, a psychologist, an economic assistance worker, a community health nurse, and a county attorney. The team addresses the multiple service needs of the child and family and ensures cooperation of case openings with multiple agencies. The community-based agencies contract with the county to provide individualized attention to the child in coordination with the Integrated Service Delivery Team. These agencies employ youth workers who work with small numbers of children, 5 to 10, each of whom has an individual success plan based on an individualized assessment of the child's functioning in the home, school, and community. The plan is directed at long-term outcomes for the children, including reduction in delinquent behavior, reduction in exposure to abuse, neglect, and violence in the home, school success, and social competency. Results of a recent evaluation show that children with a minimum of 18 months in the TEI program, when compared with a similar group of delinquent children, had fewer and less severe subsequent offenses, significantly better school attendance, and less involvement with child protection. The investment that both TEI and ACE have made in program evaluation will help determine the program's effectiveness as long-term strategies. Early efforts to evaluate the risk assessment tools used in ACE and TEI have shown positive results in terms of the validation. The use of these tools in a long-term strategy and the commitment to continuing evaluation make these valuable enterprises to follow in terms of their utility for delinquency prevention. So it is good to see that there are programs out there, but it's unfortunate that it's just they're not everywhere, and there's still obviously lots of work to do because there's still lots of children getting into trouble, and you have to wonder what's wrong with you see in the news, we see in the news all the time stories about these children doing horrible things. Kids under the age of 12, under the age of 10 years old, out there committing sexual crimes against other children. They're out there killing people, and they get a hold of a gun and shoot people, and you see this stuff in the news, and you have to sit and wonder, what's going on in that child's mind? What has that child lived through and experienced? Probably didn't come from a great home. And so that's the whole issue, right? And what are we going to do with these children? That's the whole problem. We need to stop this where it starts, which is in the home. We need to stop child abuse, child neglect. We need to, I don't know how, we're going to have to, figure it out. We don't have the answers, obviously, and that's why we're seeing children dying every day from abuse and abuse-related injuries, and being murdered at the hands of their caregivers and parents, and so and other crazy people. So we have to find the answers. It's really up to you and me. If we're ever going to make a difference, it's going to be up to you and me to have to do it. So we have about a minute left. We'll continue on with this tomorrow morning, same time, and we'll look at intervention in response to serious juvenile offenders, and we'll just keep going through the article here. I'm so happy you could join me. Thank you so much for your support, and I really appreciate you being here. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dream Catchers for Abused Children, and I'm so happy to stand with them and just to be another voice and just to help them in their mission to to stop child abuse, to prevent child abuse. It's all about education, awareness, prevention. And so I'm so happy to stand with them. Please go and check their website out, www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. There's lots and lots of good information on there on how to report child abuse, signs and symptoms, which we should all know. And, especially if you work around children or have children in your area and you see children every day, make sure you know the signs and symptoms and how to report abuse, and really make sure that you do report abuse, because you could save a child's life. And so I thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll be back on tonight, 9:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, with child abuse prevention and human rights abuse prevention is up to us. Take care, everyone, and have a great day. Bye-bye.